What's up, gentlemen? This is Rising Phoenix Podcast, a podcast about how to rise up after your divorce. I'm your host, divorce coach Michael Rhodes. Let's get into it. Joining me today is Professor Llewellyn Van Zale. Llewellyn, let's just jump right into it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a professor of positive psychology at university in the Netherlands, also in the University Northwest University in South Africa. And my area is really trying to understand how to help people live happier and healthier lives. So we try to identify what people's strengths are and figuring out how can we utilize those strengths to help them to become the best possible version of themselves. And that's pretty much my my area.
So, so rabbit holes. This is why I do create an outline, because things like this happen. How do you determine someone's strengths? Is there a quiz? Is there a test? Is there how do you do that?
So when I ask you, right, Michael, what are your strengths? What comes to mind for you? What are the things that you're really absolutely amazing at?
Ooh, amazing. That's a tough word. I feel like I feel like I'm a good interviewer. I feel like I feel like I have a lot of persistence. I don't give up very easily. I feel like I am articulate, personable, generally, even when I am tired, thanks to caffeine. I mean, those are some of the ones
Funny.
that come to my, right to the forefront of my mind. Those things.
Did you see how difficult it was initially for you when I asked you
Sure.
what are your strengths are? And it's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the moment you start thinking about it, oh, I'm persistent. Oh,
Yeah.
I am quite articulate. Oh, I'm quite personable.
Yeah.
So, do you know why it's so difficult for you to identify these things that are so good in you? Why it doesn't come naturally?
I think it's a human thing. I think we are all sort of negatively biased in a lot of ways, right? A long time ago, we had to be in order for our species to survive. So I think also that part of that survival was also being part of a group and a tribe, and you didn't want to do anything to sort of stand out in a way because maybe you would get kicked out. And so I think there's this just tendency in us to just sort of just go along to get along type of thing. I don't know. That's my guess.
Exactly. So that's one of the big components. We're programmed that way because like it helps us to survive because we're negatively biased because we want to be able to increase our probability of surviving. And if I usually do this activity where I ask people to like in 30 seconds write down everything that's negative about you, everything that you're bad at, right? And they'll come up with a list of like 18, 20 things. And if you ask people then to turn the paper around and in 30 seconds write down what your strengths, things you're good are, they'll have like maybe one or two things.
Yeah.
There are two reasons for that, besides the overarching like trying to survive thing. The one is, what is the one word a kid between the age of 6 months and 8 years hears the most frequent word they hear?
Oh, I bet it's no. Yeah.
Exactly. Across cultures, whether you're Zulu or whether you're American, it's no, don't do that.
Yeah.
So you're naturally trained to um, to avoid the things that you're bad at. But when you do something that's absolutely amazing, right? You might say, "Oh, okay, that's quite nice," right?
Right.
But we don't celebrate it, and because of that, like when you talk about like your perseverance, your personability, it's average because
Right.
everybody is creative, everybody is a good interviewer, everybody is
Right.
persistent because we see the things that we're absolutely amazing at as normal, and that's not the case. So we're not programmed that way. So the idea behind the whole strengths thing is that we all do have our strengths, things that we are good at inside of us. One, we just need to know what they actually are. So get a list of them. And two, figuring out what can I actually do with them and how do I use them? So we can use like the VIA strengths inventory. You can Google it. It's free to do on the Penn State University's website. You can also do the Clifton Strengths Finder. So these helps you identify the practical strengths, right? But you can also ask people. So if I ask you to tell a story of something that where you felt like at your absolute best, you will start to tell the story where you're utilizing the strength a lot. And it's my responsibility or my not responsibility, but my role as your guidance or your coach or your counselor to give you the vocabulary because you already know what they are. I
Right.
know I'm creative. You know you have high levels of perseverance. You know that.
Yeah.
So just don't know what the word is. And you don't know how to identify it. So there are tests that you can do. We can ask you to tell these stories. There's strength spotting exercises. You can also ask a very nice exercise to do is like, I'm not sure if you know what a 360-degree evaluation is.
No.
Um, it's something that it originated in organizational psychology, where they would ask leaders, like we'd ask your manager and your employees and your customers and your family all to give feedback on anonymously on what they think your strengths, your abilities, and these things are, so that we can figure out, get a holistic view of who you are, so we can help you create developmental plans to help you to get to the next level of leadership or whatever. So what we've kind of like done in from the positive side perspective, do the same thing, but we ask people to have an anonymous little survey, go in Google Docs and create one or whatever, and submit it to your wife or your friends or your kids, your manager, and some of your coworkers, and just ask basic questions. It's what do you think are the three things I'm absolutely amazing at?
Mm.
What are the three things that come to mind? Just to counterbalance it, what's the one thing you feel I can develop in a little bit more? And what do you feel I should stop, start, and continue doing? And taking all this stuff together, you get a very holistic view of what makes you special from the other person's perspectives. And then we have this thing called the Johari's window, which basically indicates there are things that on one, think about like a matrix. On the one end, there are things that you know about you, and there are things that I, as someone that doesn't know you, knows about you, right?
Mm.
So there are things that I and you know about you. Quadrant one, you're from the United States. You're quite personable. You just told me you have high levels of perseverance. There are things that you know about you that I don't know, right? And the people around you don't know. Okay. There are also things that I know about you that you don't know,
Mm.
and there are things that neither you nor I know about you. And this is things, for example, like you might be very good at, I don't know, you're playing electric guitar in the back. Maybe you're super good at playing bass, but you've never tried.
Right.
And the moment you pick it up, it just naturally happens for you.
Yeah.
So it's identifying those things that neither I nor you know about you is very difficult because like you have to try things and go out and do things to experience this, right?
Yeah.
But that blind spots and also the strength spots, like asking other people for feedback and see how this aligns to your view, that's an important thing. So I think this is some activities that you can use to identify the things that you're really good at, that makes you unique and makes you special.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's not the topic of conversation, but it's fascinating to me because I think it's important. I think the one of the things that occurs when you go through a divorce is you lose your identity, and then you got to figure out how to gain it back. And I think you don't do that without diving into yourself. And I think the stuff that you just described that's what it is. It's diving into yourself and figuring out who you are, what do you like, separate from the life that you had. So I think it's all good stuff. I took some notes. I think I've taken the VIA strengths already, but I'll the Clifton, I haven't heard of that. I don't think so. I'll dive into that because I think it's, sometimes it can help direct not only, your personal life, but excuse me, your work life as well. You can try and figure out, if there's certain jobs you might be interested in or whatever. It's good to know your strengths. So thank you for that. The reason I had
But it
you
is
on, yeah, go ahead.
I just said this is part of this process though, because in order for you, because you're right in the state where you have to craft out a new identity of you outside of that relationship. Going through divorce is one of the most difficult things a person can do because one, it's you're going through the same process than you would when you are when someone has died close to you.
Sure.
The problem is you're constantly faced with that person, so you don't
Yes.
have the luxury of having closure in that
No,
way.
you
So
do
you
not.
have to really go out and really craft this new identity. And unfortunately, because you're in this relationship so much, you're in this little bubble, you don't know who you are. And identifying your strengths and figuring out how to use them a lot more is a core aspect of living a happier and healthier life to get you through these dark times.
Yeah.
Because if I am, for example, if we know that you are creative, you have high levels of perseverance, and you're kind as an example, how can I how can we use this to help you, I don't know, deal with this awful divorce attorney that you're
Hmm.
confronted with, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm using something that I'm good at, this creativity, I feel naturally feel a lot better because I'm good at it. And I don't have to do something that I'm not, but I have to know that I have to use my creativity or my kindness or my curiosity in that way. So I'm using these strengths to solve these problems. So that's where this becomes a fundamental aspect of things that give you energy and not things that necessarily drain energy from you.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally and completely agree. And I think I say this all the time, sort of about, setting the intention, making the decision, that's, I'm going to figure out who I am. How do I, at least now there's, after this discussion, there's okay, how is, if we give you some clues here and some things you can, or some advice or some ways or some paths forward where you can, okay, you don't know who you are, you're lost. Well, here's go find out what your strengths are. I think is at least a jumping off point, a starting point. So I thank you for covering that. I didn't expect that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Um, the reason as I think every psychologist, doctor, therapist that I had on this show, I found on psychologytoday.com, and that's where I found you. I found an article that you posted. It's more about getting through seasonal depression, if I remember correctly. And but I think it applies to one of the things you mentioned in the blog is about the holidays, and it's obviously we're in that time period, and this is my fifth holiday since separation and then ultimately divorce. So these are difficult times, and so I want to try and I've had a similar episode not too long ago, but I think this stuff is important because I think suicide rates or I think they spike around the holidays. I think there's it's I know it's hard. I live it. I live it. I've lived it for 5 years, and it still has moments where it's like this is not what I want. I'm not sure what I would what I would change at this point because it's reconciliation is not possible. I mean, just even for me, but yeah, it's just, I still think it's good to give a guide and give some guidance to get through these times. So you gave a list of 10 different things and printed them out. We're gonna cover them one by one. And the first of those that you listed is practice gratitude daily. Let's get specific. What does that mean? What I know that for me, I journal every morning. That I'm sometimes I travel for work, but when I'm home every morning, I'm writing my gratitudes. Three things I'm grateful for. What does that specifically look like? Is that the process? Does it matter if you do it in the morning, in the night, in the afternoon? Does it make any kind of a difference? What are there studies? So let's focus in on practicing gratitude daily. What does that mean?
So I think gratitude is one of the big things in my field, and I think unlike other people that you've spoken to, that's trying to just manage the stuff, we're trying to help you to get more energy into the cup and not just trying to contain the cup,
Gotcha.
but to seal the holes. So the idea behind gratitude is that it's the ability to show appreciation towards others, but also to become more aware of the things or to relive the positive things that has happened to you. So it's almost like if you think about the negative stuff, you think about your divorce, it activates the same aspects in your brain than your pain receptors, right? So you go through the same thing. The memory is just as impactful as the actual event itself, right? And the same thing with gratitude, the same thing with positive stuff. So the idea behind gratitude is to how to relive the positive experience that you've had before, but also to make you more conscious of the things that actually gives you energy. So there are two activities that are really profound and very impactful. So the one is like called the gratitude visit. And the idea behind this is to say that think about someone in your life that has the most profound impact on the shape of who you are. Maybe that was uh, your old mentor or your old coach at high school, or maybe it was like someone at university. But think about someone that had this major impact on your life that's still alive. Write a short 250-word letter to this person, indicating what impact they had on your life, what profound effect it had, and how are you feeling about this, and how it's changed you over time. Make an appointment and physically go there and read it to them. Right? This activity itself has shown to dramatically decrease depression, stress, and anxiety over the short and medium term. And if you practice these activities, it has a long-term sustainable effect up to like a year and a half. So just as an example, in terms of practicing gratitude daily, the idea is to help you to become more conscious of the small little things that's actually happening that's positive in your life. Because we negate it. Sometimes I'm going through a shit day, and all of a sudden, like some ladies gives me like I have one item in the queue, she gives me space in front of her, I pay for it, and I go. Right? I'm not consciously aware of it, but I feel at that moment I'm like, oh yeah, thank you so much. It saves me like a couple of minutes. But because I'm not aware of it, I'm so engulfed in this negative stuff that's happening around me that I don't see these things. So it helps you to become more conscious of this fact. So the idea behind this is to say, to try and consciously look for three things that you're grateful for every day, right? So at the end of the day, you reflect upon the day before, the preceding couple of hours, and think about the three things that actually happened that you feel grateful for. That's the first aspect. But listing them is not the most important part. The most important part about this is saying, but why did these things, why do I feel grateful for these things? Why were they positive for me? So the lady giving me space in the queue, why was this important for me? Why did this make me happy? Well, I was feeling like shit. I didn't want to be around people. I felt self-conscious. I felt irritable, and it helped me to get out of the building a lot faster. So it showed me that there is still some kindness left in the world. This person saw I was frustrated, and she helped me in that respect. So then I start become more consciously aware of why these things are positive for me, and that helps me to become more conscious of these things in the future. So it's more a conscious exercise, make you more conscious of these facts.
And so let's, again, I love specificity. Are we doing this for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Like, what's the time frame?
So at the end of the day, all that you need to do with it, it takes you 2 minutes or 10 minutes. It's just literally writing down three things, what you're grateful for that day, and one reason why this was each one of these things, why it was a positive thing for you. That's it. It should not take you longer than 10 minutes, not even longer than 5 minutes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And do that for 30 days.
And you can so I always like think of things, experiences. I don't think of events, but does that work too? So like I went to a football game with my daughter last year and it was amazing. Like, is that something that, because I don't think of those types of things, but is that something that's also effective as well?
It's important to do things in the day, right? Of course, when we look about that, it's important to look at these big events. You went to the football game. Why was it important? Why was it meaningful? You could spend time with her. I don't see her that often. I build a relationship, right? These overarching grand things are there, but it's easy for us to think about the grand things because they're few and far between. They had such a positive effect on us that they already ingrained themselves into my memory that this is a positive event. The purpose of the gratitude stuff is to make you aware of the small things,
okay,
the things that are actually happening in the day-to-day life. That's not so massively impactful.
Gotcha. Okay. That's an excellent, and I agree. And I think it's important. And a lot of folks talk about this, gratitude. I think it is incredibly important. The next one is engage in mindful meditation. Again, let's get specific because, what does that mean? How do we do that? When? All those kind of good stuff. All those kind of good questions.
So I think I kind of listed them of all of the things from empirical research that had the biggest impact, right? And the only two things that shown sustainable effects was mindfulness and gratitude over the long period of time to increase positive effect, well-being, and decrease common mental health problems. Mindfulness is an interesting thing because I am not very mindful. Right? I eat quite fast. I walk quite fast. I'm not very conscious of what's going on around me. So it's really difficult for me as an individual to focus and sit down for 5 minutes every day and just let my mind go. Right? It's extremely impossible.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I found that works for me, instead of walking or instead of sitting down, I go on a mindful walk. So the idea behind this is I walk and I try to be conscious of every step that I take. When I put down, I try to feel the conscious of the earth pushing up against me and me pushing down on it. I try to be conscious of the sensations that I'm having in terms of what I'm feeling at that moment. So the physical feelings, the cold brush of air. I try to be more conscious of the sounds. So, and I just walk around the block and it takes around 10, 15 minutes for me to do this. And it really helps me to become more aware of the sensations that I'm having. So I didn't know, for example, that I had heart pain, as an example. Because I'm always so rushing, I don't know what my body is telling me. And
Mhm.
the first couple of times I was walking, I was like, why am I having this weird sensation here? And I was walking, and the pain became so excruciating that I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh yeah, okay, you've got a little bit of a heart problem there, and it seems like it's been there for quite some time." But because I'm not like very consciously aware of what's going on in my body because I was rushing, I didn't know this.
Yeah.
So for me personally, the mindful walking thing worked really well.
Mm.
Um, when we talk about what the literature and stuff tells us, is it's literally just you only need 5 minutes a day where you sit down, where you calm yourself, where you allow your thoughts just to go forth without letting it influence you. That has the most significant effect. So it's that 80%, 20% rule. You do 20% of the work to get 80% of the benefit. So
Right.
after 5 minutes, the amount of benefit you get in terms of increase in life satisfaction and whatever is not as much as that first 5 minutes, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
you can sit for 2, 3 hours and
Right.
meditate, but you get only a slight little bit more benefit than you would for 5 minutes, for example.
Yeah.
And I like this app. There's these small. I don't want to. I'm not sure if I can say the app's names, but there are
Yeah.
these apps that you can go on. There's like Breathe, for example, which is a
Yeah.
nice one.
Calm.
Headspace is another one,
Yeah.
and they take you through these 5 minute guided meditations, and that's it. And but you have to do it consistently for a couple of weeks
Yeah.
for it to actually to have this effect.
Yeah. So does it matter in terms of when, morning, night, again, that kind of stuff?
So for me personally, I don't think it has that big of an impact when you're doing it. It's just being calm. But I do know for me, when I go through this walk, I feel exhausted afterwards because it's a very intensive activity. And I know people meditate and do this mindful eating or whatever like at night because they can go to sleep afterwards.
Mm.
Um, as an example, another activity I think that you can kind of like do is like mindful eating. So what we do with chocolates, for example, is that we ask a person to take a piece of chocolate in a wrapper, a small little chocolate, and just slowly open it, or just feel it in your hands, and then slowly open it, smell it, put
Mm.
it in your mouth. Don't bite it, let it melt. That's also a mindful based activity. It's called savoring.
Mm.
And it also helps you to be more aware of uh, happiness in the present, where gratitude is happiness in the past, mindfulness is happiness in the present, and savoring.
Mm.
That's another activity. It doesn't matter if you do it in the morning or in the evening, just as long as you have this 5 minutes for yourself.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I think I struggle with that one a little bit too. I'm similar in terms of like let's go, let's go. I got shit to do. Plus, single father, so even half the time it's still, it's challenging, and there's not often where you can kind of just take a few minutes to yourself. I mean, it happens for sure, but I think it's being aware of these things and trying to set the intention and making it part of your life. And I think we can all, as much as oh, I'm so busy, I think I can find 5 minutes. I'm pretty sure of it. The next one,
Because you have to
no,
go to sleep, right? Eventually.
yeah,
So five
very
minutes
true.
before you go to sleep, just even if you just lie on your bed and just feel the pressure of the bed on top for underneath you,
Yeah,
whatever, that's also being mindful, right?
yeah,
It's also
yeah,
meditating.
yeah, very true. Yeah, and I think that's a lot of this stuff, right? I think we for whatever reason, again, humans were negatively biased. Whatever, it's like, oh, it just seems like this big, meditation or what? That's weird or that's different or I can't do that and it's really I don't think it's as complex as we make it out to be sometimes. Um, Number three is practice random acts of kindness. Again, let's go with specifics. What do we mean?
So when we talk about run as kindness, we talk about pro-social behavior, right? We are social animals, like you mentioned before. We're a tribe. We want to work together to get to a common goal. Right? And we ran, not me, but colleagues of mine ran multiple studies on this acts of kindness because we know kindness is a mechanism to kind of draw people together. It makes me feel good. And so they did these experiments where they did like, okay, do one random act of kindness every single day, right? And then they did like one every week, one every month, and five on every day, 5 on a day. And they found that if you do 5 random acts of kindness in a day, that's the only thing that actually affects like life satisfaction, well-being, and these types of aspects. So the idea is then to say to do 5 random acts of kindness once a week. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm giving $1,000 to uh, the homeless guy on the street. It's small little gestures, like the lady giving you, or you giving a lady, an old lady in front of you, space in the queue, for example, right? Or helping someone with their homework, or it's really small little acts of kindness that makes us more aware of how the impact that we have on other people's lives. So the idea again is to do these small 5 tiny little things on one day, once a week.
Hmm. All right, I can do that for sure. This is the next one, number 4. I really like this one. This one sort of kind of, I don't know. It made me feel a certain way, some joy, I guess. It uses the word joy. Do things that used to bring you joy as a child. Um, I really like that one. Again, let's talk about that a little bit.
Let's talk about the science behind it. So when you're growing up as a kid and you're getting exposed to something, think about like the old Christmas movies that you watch. When you watch them today, you still have, for some reason, a
Yeah.
warm feeling, right? Or if you see or you hear a song from back in the day when you were a child, it still brings up this, even if it's just for a millisecond, it brings stuff up because at that stage, your brain is still wiring itself. It's still making new connections between things. And under these normal, let's call it confined, positive experiences, you create positive memories attached. So by doing things that you used to do that was fun and joyful and meaningful as a kid, helps you to relive those experiences and it reactivates those pathways. Think about driving, you're driving to your work and you used to take the shortcut because it was quite nice and scenic. And all of a sudden you realize, okay, but this is taking too long. I have to take the highway now. It's a
Right.
lot faster, it gets me there. And the more I do this highway stuff, the less I start forgetting about this other route.
Uh,
When I discover this route again, I'm like, oh yeah, and that's that favorite tree of mine. And oh,
right.
look at that dam. You automatically reactivate the path and you automatically want to do that again. So doing things that gave you joy as a child helps you really live those experiences. So it
Yeah.
gives a little bit more energy into the thing, but it also helps you connect to things that you used to find fun and that used to be interesting for you. So it helps you relive that kid inside of you.
Yeah, I
And there's a
love
lot
that.
of research that shows that
Yeah.
how effective just that is.
Yeah. I love that one. Here's one that we had this brief conversation before we started. This is the one I struggle with. Maintain consistent sleep, a healthy diet. I do okay there. Exercise every day, definitely not. I mean that's probably a large rabbit hole, but let's at least talk about the importance of consistent sleep.
So I think probably everybody that you've spoken to or will speak to will always talk about a healthy body, a healthy mind, right?
Oh yeah.
But one thing I think that's really important is sleep hygiene.
Hmm.
Now, when we talk about sleep hygiene, it's about having not the amount of sleep is not as important as the quality of the sleep that you get. Right? And when I talk about the quality, we're talking about like these REM cycles where you're like in deep sleep where you're dreaming. So the idea behind this is to say that sleep helps reset your neural pathways. It basically hits reset on your emotions, on your physical, even like physical ailments like pain, chronic pain, and things. It hits reset on them because your body gets a chance to process stuff. Now, the problem why most of us, me included, have bad sleep is because we have poor sleep hygiene. We
Mm.
don't go to bed at the same time. We use our bedroom for different things. It's not just for sleeping. Um, we do multiple things when we're not supposed to. We don't have a routine in way. We don't have a sleeping ritual. So a lot of people talk about like getting into sleep, right? So make sure
Mm.
that you go to the same time to bed, get the same amount of hours, use your space for what it is, not for other stuff. But what people also do not talk about is like how important the waking up part after sleep is. So
Mm.
when you wake up in the morning, what do you do the first thing when you wake up in the morning?
Depends on the morning, but it's either go wake my oldest daughter up or go make coffee.
There's something you do before that.
Get out of bed, I guess, right?
You grab your phone.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that's
Do you
guilty.
see?
Yeah, yeah,
You're not quite, because the moment that you pick up your phone, the moment you pick up your phone, your mind is activated and in work mode or in like energy
yeah,
mode, or I have to do type of stuff.
yeah. True.
Leave your phone when you wake up, even if you just put it down, don't check it. Just take 5 minutes and wake up and allow yourself to think about things and experience the process of getting awake.
Mm,
Otherwise, you're negating most of the benefits that you get from the sleep, at least the last sleep cycle. You're losing because you're automatically running again. Your brain automatically has to start being at 110 kilometers or miles an hour. So before sleep ritual, sleep hygiene, but also in the morning, finalizing the sleep process by allowing yourself to have a slow start, 5 minutes, but also have a ritual.
mm,
Be consistent. I want to make coffee before I wake my kid up.
right,
I want to have my read my newspaper or whatever. Have
right.
a small little ritual.
Gotcha. Okay. Again, all doable stuff. Number six, I think, is probably one we all struggle with. I think practice self-compassion and self-kindness. So again, let's talk about that. How do we do that? What's it look like? Why is it so damn hard? I think we kind of touched on this already, but yeah, let's talk about self-compassion and self-kindness.
Michael, if you say half of the things that you're thinking about yourself to another person, what do you think that other person is going to do to you?
Oh yeah, he's gonna tell me to go fuck myself pretty quickly. Yeah, 100%.
Probably beat you up as well, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so what so why are you so why do you say these things? Like, oh my god, I'm so fucking stupid. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I should have done that. Like, why are you so hard on yourself there?
I think, yeah, and then you can confirm this, but I suspect this is true, and I think I've talked to other folks. You know, it all comes back to your childhood. I think we're obviously negatively biased as humans. That's part of it, I'm sure. But I think on good, bad, or indifferent, because we are negatively biased, the negative input that we get, I think, especially from our parents as children, I think sticks with us. And so I think for me, the negative that I hear is typically my mother, right? That was sort of put into me from long, long ago. Like you said, what's the one word? What's the word kids hear the most? Just no. So I suspect that's what's going on.
That's exactly. So you're trained here to think about these things, and you're as critical on yourself as what these important life figures in your case was for you.
Sure.
Why? Because you are doing this because you feel like if I make a mistake, oh, people won't like me. That's the fundamental
Hmm.
thing that's behind it. I'm useless. No, like I can't do
Yes.
anything right. Blah blah blah.
Yes.
That's the thing that's underlying it, not the mistake that you.
Right.
But um, but knowing that everybody makes mistakes is an important aspect. And we talk about self kindness. I like to use this example where if you've got this massive zit on your face, this massive pimple, you're walking in town, and what do you think happens? What are you
Right.
experiencing?
Yeah, you're gonna imagine that's what everyone's looking at and pointing at and talking about, and right.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
you're like, oh my God, like I'm disgusting. I don't want to see this.
Right.
Everybody's
Right.
looking at it.
Yeah.
Excellent, great. How many people in that same day, then you when you walked this yesterday in town, how many people's big massive pimples did you see?
Right. Right.
Yeah, no one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But because we're also like focused on the stuff, we realize that actually no one actually cares.
No.
And nobody cares if you make a mistake, unless you make such a massive mistake that goes viral and is on the internet and follows you for. And unfortunately, most of us are not that lucky. Most
Yeah.
of us are
Right.
not Kaya and West.
Right.
Um, but the fact of the matter is, like, we all make mistakes, and it's fine, and it's
Yeah.
okay. And I think the big thing that I always try to tell myself is like, it's called this whole thing about radical acceptance. It's
Mm.
to say that, can I change something
Yeah.
about this situation right now? Can I change? I'm going through this divorce. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and then I'm like, oh shit, like this is happening. Like, can I change at this moment in time? What can I do?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. Right?
Right.
So why am I spending energy on it?
Yeah.
I can maybe do something tomorrow morning, right?
Right.
Or I can phone the lawyer, or I can do whatever.
Right.
But at this moment, there's nothing I can do. So allowing yourself just to accept the things that you're experiencing and knowing that the emotion that you're experiencing is not bad.
Right.
Depression, anxiety, stress, they're not bad emotions. We are adding value to them. They're not going to hurt you. They are there, just like happiness, just like sadness, or whatever. They're there, and just allowing it to be because it's not going to hurt you, and accepting the feeling. Um, I think that's the big thing, and you have to become aware here. When we talk about self-kindness and compassion, you have to become aware of the way in which you approach these problems, these negative thought patterns. So
Yes.
catastrophizing, I would go and think, blow everything out of proportion. Life is going to end.
Right.
Nothing is going to ever be the same.
Right.
No one's ever going to love me again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had I've had multiple dates in my life,
Right.
right?
Right. Right.
I've had relationships before. I can have
Yeah.
relationships later. But
True.
in that moment, I know I catastrophize. And if I catastrophize, it's like, okay, this is just what I'm doing right now. Let the
Right.
thought go, let it run its course, let it catastrophize, and just say, well, it's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's not reality. I think that's the big part
Yeah.
when it comes to showing yourself more compassion.
I think so. It to me, it always comes back to, you kind of said it before. It's mindfulness is such a big part of this stuff. To me, it really it boils down. That's such a huge part of life is just being mindful of your thoughts, and it's one of the things. So I do coach guys, and it's one of the things that I focus on is not. I don't want you to change your thoughts right away. I just want you to recognize them and to get into the habit of like, oh, that was negative, or that wasn't very nice to me, or whatever, so you can start getting into that. It's a mindful practice, right? You're paying attention to your own thoughts, and once you start catching them and being conscious of your thoughts, because I think we go through our life largely on autopilot, a lot of us.
Mm,
We're going to make the coffee, and then we go to the bathroom, and then we sign on the email, and it's just all very just sort of on autopilot. It feels like not every day, not every moment, but it kind of feels like that. But if you can start being mindful and paying attention to what you do, then you can start making some changes. But boy, is it fucking really, really hard.
mm. I think the big thing there is that when when you're becoming aware of these emotions, like you know the emotions are there, but you also have to look at what the triggers are behind,
Mm,
right? And I think the big thing there is like this is a story for a different day, but like exposure to it. So I know, for example, there is a when I went through a breakup, there was a many years ago. It's not the same as a divorce. But like I went through a very bad breakup, and there was a town in Germany called Essen, and where this person stayed, and I, for the life of me, could not see if I see the word Essen, it would trigger these emotions in me, and I could not even drive the road for the stuff up. But systematically, I just allowed myself to like I would drive past and I would look at the sign. I'm like, okay, well, what's happening?
right.
Like, I'm not getting hurt. I'm not gonna die. I've lived a different life. But exposing myself to that, and over time, it becomes a lot easier. But the trigger is important, and the reason where this comes from, like you said, the stuff that lies behind it,
Mm.
understanding those things, being okay with it is another aspect. So a little bit
Yeah.
of dual.
Yeah, I think it's important to also, look back at your childhood to get an understanding of your patterns as well. Because,
Mm,
and it's not to lay blame at the feet of your parents, although it may be well deserved, but we talk about things you can control. You can't do fuck all about that. Even if they were shitty parents, that was in the past. But at least to take pressure off yourself so that you understand that your habits and patterns didn't come from you. It's not like you were like, you know what, I'd like to be really, really anxious. Can I get that one? Right. It's not,
yeah.
or whatever it is, right? That whatever sort of some of your bad habits, bad patterns, all these things, they're developed a long time ago. And I think it's important to just at least understand that, again, not to place blame, although it may be well deserved, but just to understand that you're not a fuck up, you're not a terrible person. You might have some bad habits and bad practices and thought patterns or whatever, but that came from long ago. So you're right. One is, I think you got to be aware of sort of what you're thinking, and be mindful of those thoughts, and then to understand sort of why you are the way that you are. I think it's incredibly important. How often, sort of a rabbit hole, but how often when you're working with someone, how often does childhood sort of come up, or in classes or whatever?
So it's one of the fundamental things in even from our paradigms perspective, right? So behavior, there are certain things that's inborn, but we're trained in every other aspect.
Yeah.
And whether I was working with a first year student or whether I was working with executives in large multinational companies, it's always the same things. We have to try identify what's going on in the past because I won't be able to resolve it, but I can become okay with it.
Yeah.
And I like the whole metaphor about your psyche is like this car, your first car that's given to you, right? It's this old beat up Ford Mustang with a tire that's halfway broken and a taillight that is out, right? The thing barely drives. You don't have money as a 16-year-old to buy a new car. So you have this car and you have to make the best of it. Sometimes you've got a little bit of money and you can buy a new tire, right? Or you can fix the light temporarily. But this is the car that you've been given, and this is the thing that you have to drive and make the best of it. You can fix things over time if you've got the energy, the money to do it. But it's becoming okay with the fact and say that this is my car, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's a gift that was given to me, whether it's a good gift or bad gift or a piece
Right.
of coal. It was something that was given to me, and I had to make peace with the same thing in my own mind. Is that my parents did absolutely the best that they could with what they had at that stage.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they, like you said, you didn't choose anxiety and this.
Right.
Like she or he also tried her best with what
Sure.
she had available to her. And maybe now 20 years later, she's a better person because she was also a child when she had you and you're growing up with her.
Hmm.
Um, and now she's a lot wiser. That's why she's maybe a better grandparent than she is was a parent. But just realizing that she really just or he really just tried to do the best that he could, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you sorry, it doesn't mean that you're adding value and say it was okay what they did, but
Right.
just feeling comfortable and realizing that it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, number 7, limit your exposure to social media. Boy, I love this one.
Yeah.
That can be really, really hard, but talk about that. Why is it important? How does that help you get through sort of a depressive time period?
So what do we do on social?
Just scroll and like, and I think I mean I'm guessing probably part of the answer is, and I think there are studies that bear this out, I'm sure you'll touch on it, is we compare, right? We see whether it be maybe our friends, of course, because nobody's posting, or people rarely post that they had the worst day of their lives or whatever. It's always like, oh, I went on this trip or I did this thing, and life is amazing. You see the best parts of everyone's life, and so I think I'm guessing there's a lot of comparison that occurs when we spend a lot of time on social media.
That's exactly the right answer. The thing is, like, we're even more sensitive towards this in December, where we're consistently confronted with jingle bells and happiness and or fake happiness and consumerism, and everybody's like having a
Yeah,
jolly old time. So it's always in our face. And if you're already down, if you're already in that hole, and you're
mm,
constantly being faced by this, especially in social media where it's your friends like posting these things.
yeah,
If it's strangers, you can still say, okay, well, fuck them. They also have their.
right,
But when it's someone close to you, you feel like they're having so much better life. Why aren't they inviting me to this?
right,
They know
right,
I'm going through a difficult time.
yeah,
So we constantly go through this comparison, but we're even more sensitive during this time. So it's important to try and avoid it as much as you possibly can, because it's just going to dig that hole a lot deeper for you.
yeah. No, agreed. I think, and it's a tough one because we're all so engrossed, um, in social media. It's just such a part of all of our lives. But I think it's good. I try to take a break at least once a year for a week. I probably should do it more, but I do try to at times just step away. A lot of it is, I run a support group on Facebook and for divorced men, and there's right now there's over 7,000, and it can get, you know, just overwhelming. Not necessarily the sad stories don't affect me as much as just sometimes of the negativity that I see and the anger and that stuff can weigh on me. But I think it's definitely an important part of this. But it's also kind of weird because your friends are on there, and so like you feel like that's how you're connected to folks. But I don't think it's not a real true connection. And I think that if the benefits if the negatives outweigh the benefits, then I think it's good idea to step away for a little bit.
I think also for you specifically, because you're very, very empathic by nature, it seems. So these things hit you a lot harder when you see it on
Oh
social
yeah,
media, for example, right? So it's
sure.
not about the story, it's about the effect, it's about the emotion.
Yeah. No,
So
I
again, self-awareness.
yeah,
It's getting, if I know this about me and I know this is going to be a difficult time, or whatever, I need to
right.
separate myself from that because otherwise I don't have the capacity to carry other people's emotions right now.
Yeah,
That's also on the negative end, not just the positive end.
yeah, for sure. So number 8, I love this one. Write a letter to your past self. Let's talk about this one. Let's get specific on this one. Like what past, how long, my kid, my like what five, a year ago, like what am which Michael am I writing to, and what am I writing to him?
So I would like to say, like, I was the happiest in my life when I was 10 years old.
Mm,
I was I was starting the puberty thing. I had my good friends, had no issues,
yeah,
at least what I can remember.
sure.
And at that stage, when I even though we were very poor growing up, I knew, okay, well, one day it will be things will be fine, right? And at that stage, even though I had no worries, I had certain expectations of what I think my life could have been like. I can tell you, there is no way in hell. If you ask my 10-year-old self where I would be when I was 35 or 38, I would say I was in the Netherlands. I have like this, I have that. I've been running a company. I've been doing all this stuff. I've seen the world. Like I would never even thought I would leave my hometown.
Uh,
So I would never. And writing a letter to this person and saying, like, dear 10-year-old Lou, I am you from the future and I've got a story to
huh,
tell. Talking about what happened to you this year, explaining, like, I know when you were like when I was there with you, I knew you said you wanted to do this, this, and this, but let me tell you how my life has changed. Yes, there's been good things and there's been bad things, but overall, this is where I'm at. Look at what I've conquered. Look at what I've been able to achieve this year. So the idea is then to one, I like to do it every year just for the year itself,
yeah.
saying, but look at all the good things and all the amazing
Mm,
things that I've actually been able to do this year. Even if there's nothing, just the fact that despite all the troubles I'm having, I'm still here. I
yeah.
still push through all of this stuff, showing my resilience. Even just explaining that type of stuff highlights not only the positive things that's happened to you, but also shows you your characteristics, your strengths, the things that you've been utilizing a lot more.
Yeah.
So writing this little letter to yourself really helps you to become more conscious of this fact, but also to celebrate all of the small victories that you've had over the year.
Um, that's a good. I'm gonna do that one. I don't. It's not something I've ever sort of even heard about or thought of, but I'm gonna do that one this year for sure. Um,
A friend of
number
mine, sorry, maybe
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
a friend of mine does this thing where he writes an email to himself from a different account, similar thing, but sends it like 20 years in the future, like when he's like 60 or something. So he sends just a yearly update also to himself so that when he's older, he can also relive all of these positive experiences. It's a
Oh,
different thing for a different purpose, but it's such a nice way to become more conscious of the positive aspects in your life.
yeah, I love that. I was thinking about that, like because uh, I think like most folks, or maybe I'm unique. I doubt it. In terms of like, man, what did I have for lunch 3 days ago? Fucking, I don't know. You know what I mean? So you get to the end of the year and like, I'm gonna write all my positives, and I'm like, fuck, what did I do this year? So I think it's to have that. It's interesting to have that mechanism where you do, you know, sort of send some positive stuff on a somewhat regular basis. You don't want to do it
Mm.
every day, I'm guessing, but that's interesting. I love that. I'm gonna try and do that one as well. Um, Number 9, spend time with friends and family. I mean, that can be a tricky one going through a divorce. But there's, I think, always, I think, and some of y'all out there, I know that, when you go through a divorce, you lose friends and maybe you lose a majority, maybe all. But there's got to be someone there that you can go see and spend some time with. So, but it might take a little bit more work. Maybe it includes just being around people. And this is something
Yeah,
I was my a couple episodes ago, I talked about getting through the holidays. One of the things I forgot to say was volunteer. And so maybe you
yeah.
don't have a friend or a family, but maybe you can go to a soup kitchen or a pantry or those types of things. So, but let's talk about that. Why is that important? I mean, obviously good human interaction is important, but specifically, how does that help during this time period?
So you actually took all the words out of my mouth, Michael.
Sorry
Um,
about
the big thing is like we have to spend time around people, even if we don't feel we have the energy.
that.
Whether it's random people, whether it is people that we care about, the idea is just to be in a social environment where we can actually contribute and we can actually feel valued.
Yeah.
Now, there was this one study that was done, a Harvard study, where they tracked people for 70 years, right, across their lifespan. And they found that the only predictor of happiness, the only predictor is positive relationships. The only predictor over from money to whatever, it's having the ability to have mutually beneficial relationships where I feel I get something out of it and you do as well.
Hmm.
So the idea behind this is exactly if you don't have friends or family, go volunteer. If you don't feel like you want to volunteer, go to the lady in the supermarket and just have a 2 minute conversation with her, just so that you feel valued and do it consistently.
Yeah.
What I, for example, like to do, especially around Christmas, is I try to make an active point to play a game, like online games with my friends, as an example, just to feel that connection. I try to also randomly, not randomly, but like I try to phone people, at least one person every December that I haven't spoken to the entire year, that I had a good relationship with, just to also get that experience. But relationships help us to cope with things. They help us feel valued. They help give life meaning. So yeah, it's important to try and spend some time around people and not lock yourself up in your house.
Well, and that's, I know for men, that's a struggle, can be a struggle, especially not only divorce, but life in general. We can tend to isolate. That's why I believe, and I'm sure there are studies that bear this out, or at least there certainly is educated opinions about why male suicide is so much higher than female. And I think that's part of it. I think we haven't mastered, or we certainly weren't allowed to in some ways, like to learn to lean on other folks and express ourselves to those folks and get support. I think it's really, really hard for men. And that's why I think we have to work harder when we're going through something, to make sure we don't isolate, to make sure we get around folks, because like you said, it's sort of, it gives you meaning. It gives you comfort, I think, in some ways, because you feel devalued, and to be around folks and to have pleasant experiences. I think it's so important.
It's about the power also of vulnerability. And I think there's not one person. I think, like, if you have friends in your life, you feel I don't want to bother them or whatever. But
Right,
there's
right.
not one person in your life that's close to you, and you would go and say, "Listen, I'm going through a rough time. Can I just, I don't know, come stay with you for a day? Can we go out for a coffee?" I can guarantee you, not one of them will tell you no.
Yeah,
But it's showing vulnerability, showing, like, reaching out and
yeah,
putting yourself out there,
yeah,
because that's the thing that kind of like withholds us from access to this floodgate of positive stuff that could potentially help us. It's this: I have to be the strong one. I have to be I can't put up a bad face because everyone will think I'm stupid or useless or
right, right,
weak,
right. Yeah.
and no one
Uh,
cares. So
Yeah, well, and that's, like you said, it goes back to, I'm going to guess, right, to your childhood and the story you're telling yourself that was developed during your childhood. Oh, nobody cares. Nobody wants, I'm a fuck up. Nobody wants to hang out with me anyway. She left me. I'm useless. All those things. And that comes from somewhere. Obviously, the events of a divorce will sort of influence that, right? A rejection will do that. But if you have a solid foundation, I think you probably still would have some of those thoughts, but you certainly would bounce back a little bit quicker. And I think you wouldn't probably struggle as much as I know I did. I mean, because I didn't have a solid foundation. I had a rough childhood ish. I mean, many have had it worse, but it's sometimes it's really hard to sort of see through. Um, my buddy Chris says it all the time: bounce your feelings off the truth. And sometimes your feelings are so heavy and so weighted and so present, and it's hard to see that they're not always true. But I do think that being vulnerable allows you to get support so that others can help you see the truth, which is, you're not worthless, you're not a piece of shit, you're going through a rough spot, but you're worthy of love and support, same as anybody else. So, number 10. This is a good one, and again, I think this is something that I recommend. It's recommended by pretty much it. Obviously, there's some bias here on the podcast. Probably, I don't even know, 90% of my guests, maybe, or some type of psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor. But number 10 is, don't be afraid to ask for for professional help. And again, I think that's one of those things that it's getting less stigmatized, but I think again for men it can be a little bit more challenging that, but it goes back sort of to that vulnerability, right? The ability or the action of just raising your hand and saying, I need a little help here.
I mean, even your support group on Facebook, right? It's not like it's not professional help in a way, but it's a community.
Yeah.
It is people that are going through similar stuff that's willing to share, willing to listen. And sometimes, and like I just want to say this up front, like I'm a very well established psychologist. I've published many papers, and I don't really believe in therapy.
Really?
Um, because the therapeutic techniques that we kind of like utilize, I think it's a waste of money. The only thing
Interesting.
that has an impact, the only thing that has an impact is that the fact is that when you're sitting with a therapist, it's the first time in your life where you can be truly yourself. You can share whatever is on your mind. You can soundboard with someone that listens and cares. Right? So that helps you to kind of restructure things. So my role as a therapist is only there to basically soundboard and to facilitate your understanding of the things going on. You can do that by yourself,
True.
right? But the thing is, like, that's the only thing. The most important thing that helps facilitate growth and development is having the ability to feel that I can be myself without judgment, without whatever, and having someone to listen to me and care for me authentically. And you can have that same thing in a support group. You can have that same thing with someone that you care about, with a good friend. I would supplement this with these types of activities, these I want to say self-help activities, but like validated, self-administered intentional activities that has shown to actually impact on the things that I'm struggling with. And there's a site, I don't remember which university it is, but it's like called the Greater Good Science Center. You can Google it. And they have a full, all of these self-help activities. There's thousands of them, whether it's on individual, group, organization level, that shows very simplistically, this is what you can do, this is how it's done, and this is the science that supports it.
Mm.
Try some of these activities. Those are the things that will be sustainable. These are the things that you can practice, because you're not going to see a therapist at 2 a.m. in the morning when
Right.
you're anxious about the lawyer's meeting that you have tomorrow morning for
Right.
the divorce.
Yeah. I'm surprised, but not, I think it's I'm always a guy who leans on science to the best of his silly ass brain will let him, right? Whatever I can try and sort of understand, and because I think I'm always interested in the mechanism. Like, okay, this is good, but why is it good, and how is it good, and be specific, because then I can be specific about how I handle it or approach it or attack it or whatever. And so I think it's interesting that you say so. Is there any type of modality that you would say is helpful? CBT or I don't know, some of the others. That's the one that comes to mind. Narrative therapies. Is there any modalities that you do think is beneficial as a therapy?
So when we talk about CBT, I think it's about changing how you think, so you can change how you feel, so you can change how you behave. Right? That's the overall model. But every psychological paradigm, whether it's psychodynamic therapy, whether it's constellations therapy or positive psych, it's about self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So I like CBT because it helps rechange the stuff, but solutions oriented therapy works very well for me personally,
Mm.
because it's solutions orientated. I
Yeah.
have a problem.
Yeah.
There's a framework. I want to generate a solution.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about it, because I am very self-aware. I do know how to do these types of things. I
Right.
know how to do a psychological test, but it's like I need to have solutions to my problems.
Gotcha.
And that's where the solutions oriented stuff kind of helps very well. But that's more coaching oriented.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do like CBT, because all my interventions that we also develop about it is based on that principle.
Mm.
It's about becoming aware and changing your mindset about things. So CBT is a good one. Solutions oriented is another one.
Mm.
But yeah, be very careful with I think with other types of approaches.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I think it's like I always liken it to dating. Don't settle for the first person you come across. Therapist wise, they're not all good. clearly, right? No profession has 100%, success rate or anything of that nature. Or 100% of quality people or ethical people. That's not fucking possible. I want to, before we get to, so thank you for doing this, and I'll thank you again. But there's something that popped in my head that I'm wondering if you could address. And I scribbled it down. It's something that I think guys that go through divorce, we struggle with this, and maybe you can speak to this, maybe not. I'm taking a shot in the dark here. It seems to me that when we are told that the now ex-wife or soon to be ex-wife for some guys wants a divorce, they see, and I understand their portion of it and why they do this. They see we become the worst person in the world. Once they make that decision, we are written off. We're the villain in their story. We're every negative thing we've ever done in the course of the relationship comes up. And I understand that they need fuel, to make the leap, so to speak. They're not going to leave someone that they look at fondly, right? So they got to sort of not conjure, but in a way, got to pull up all these things to fuel them to leave. The other side of that coin, this is the one that I don't understand. Why is it that we that are getting left only see the positive and can't see the negative sometimes? Like we put them on the pedestal, like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Please don't leave me. All these, even though 6 months ago maybe you would have been like, oh, this bitch, she does this and she does that and she does this. But once they decide they're leaving, we put them on a pedestal. Is there what mechanism is at work there? If you can speak to that, because it boggles me. I don't understand it.
I think it all has to do with like the way in which we try to get closure on the situation. And I think the big issue there is about hope. And hope is, it was said in the Hunger Games, and they summarize it quite well. A little bit of hope is amazing. A lot of hope is a problem. And the problem here is like you feel that you can still fix things. You can still, like, this is just the thing that's going through, right? She was amazing, and look at all the stuff going through. You're trying to convince this person of these things, right? So just like this other person is trying to get closure in their specific way, you're also trying to get closure in a way. And your type of closure is to try and reestablish that relationship, to try and rework it. So you're in that, if you look at that Kubler-Ross model on the dealing with grief, right, that's a big part of the denial aspect. You're still trying to come to terms with it. And then you jump to this whole bargaining thing where it's like, okay, but maybe if we can do this, maybe if I do that.
Right.
And then like I'm going through this thing to try and convince not her, but me, that I can still solve this, or I can't solve it, whatever the case may be. So it really has to do with hope. And it's an incredibly interesting phenomena, but it also has to come down to your own self-belief. Like, if you feel worthy, if you feel like I am actually a good person, or I am actually worthy of love, whatever, if you don't have that strong sense of self and self-belief, then you start to think, but this is my only option. I have to make this work, because if I'm not this, I'm not worthy enough of that. So it has really come back to that whole self-compassion thing. It's really just starting to start to learn that you are okay, and that like this is just again your process that you're going through. And you want to kind of like close this door in the best possible way, because you don't want to feel like, oh, you ruined this person afterwards. But you also want to feel worthy. And if a person constantly tells you your shit in a divorce proceedings, what's going to happen eventually? You're going to feel shit, and you're going to be shit, because that's all that you hear constantly. So I think that's there's the psychodynamic process, but that's how I think what lies behind it.
No, it makes some sense. It's certainly around fear, I think, self-worth, right? If you do get left, then what's your worth and your identity and all those things. It makes more sense now. We sort of talked it out, but I always struggle with it. Like, why am I? Because I did it. Why am I putting her on a pedestal? Like, with 6 months ago, I would have been like, oh, she is such a pain in the ass. But now it's like, no, she is the perfect, and like, which, again, in hindsight, 4.5 years later, like, you kind of chuckle at yourself, like, perfect. Come on. Nobody's perfect, but sure as shit, she wasn't perfect. So I find a lot of guys do this, but now that we sort of talked that, it makes a lot of sense. So thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. Well, let's cover how can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you, or read your papers, or any of that kind of stuff?
I think the best thing is just to, if they want to contact me, can just email me. It's my name, Llewellyn101@gmail.com.
Gotcha.
Or just go on Psychology Today and send an email. I'm available wherever,
Awesome.
or on social media, LinkedIn. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much how they can get in touch with me.
All right, awesome. So the last question I ask everybody is, what words of wisdom would you impart to a man just starting his divorce journey?
It's going to sound very cliche, but it's cliche for a reason. Know that it's okay not to be okay. And despite all the things that you're kind of going through at the moment, this isn't one of the only times in your life where you have the opportunity to, one, really get to know yourself, so deep self-discovery. Two, it's not often in your life where you have the opportunity to reinvent yourself, right? So knowing yourself, knowing that you can change, and figuring out what are the things in your life that you want to change, that you want to work on to be a better person. This is the most opportune time to identify those things. And I think the last thing I think in my own mind is just that a relationship is based on a combination of two people's contributions to a problem, right, or to a situation. You did something, she did something, and these two things did not go very well together. And it doesn't make either of you bad people. You're just bad together. We're on the right track, but on the wrong trains. The moment that you realize that, it becomes I think, a little bit easier.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree more. Thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can stay in touch and you can do this again.
That'd be very nice. Thank you so much, Michael. It was so nice to also meet you, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. Feel free to email me and talk to me, and if you want me to do something else for you guys, I'm more than willing. And also if you, I'd really like to listen to this. I looked for your podcast, but I couldn't find it. I wasn't on Spotify.
It's on Spotify.
So
yeah.
Maybe I just typed Phoenix wrong.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. It's on Spotify. It's everywhere. It's on Spotify. It's on YouTube as well. But only to a certain. I started it on YouTube, like episode 40 something, 50 something maybe. So it is on YouTube, but it's on Spotify. It's on Google Podcasts, on Apple, all the. But I'll send you a link.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And have an absolutely wonderful, Merry. I don't know.
Yeah, you can say
Merry Christmas.
You can say Merry Christmas to me. It doesn't bother me, but yeah, thank you. You as well. Enjoy your holidays. Have a happy new year. And again, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Right. Thanks, Michael.
Yep. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for watching and/or listening. Since my separation in July of 2019, I have done an incredible amount of work on myself. I've had many different therapists, life coaches, and went through different programs. I've taken all that I've learned and put it into my own program called Forged by Fire. If you are interested in having me help you navigate your divorce, please hit my website, risingphoenixdivorcecoach.com. I look forward to working with you.